Welcome to An Aries and Pisces Walk Into a Coffee Shop, the podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Bridget, she, her.
And I'm Tiffany, she, her. This is a podcast where two friends let go of perfectionism and talk unedited. You can find us at the links in our show notes.
Support the show by buying us a coffee. Also, subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Hello.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Okay, right off the bat, I got to get this off of my chest.
Yes, please.
I needed to ask you this question. The flowers that you sent me in the text message, do you think that those are anemones? Do you know what kind of flowers those are?
I have heard of that type of flower, but now I have to go look it up.
Okay, because I did put it in the Google.
Oh.
I put it in the Google image, and that's what it came up with. But also, I didn't see them like up close.
I
so
think
I
that
sure.
does, in fact, look like them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is why
I think you're right.
This is why I asked. You sent me that photo, and I like instantly had a reaction to the photo, and I was like, "What the heck?" And then I was like, well, they're beautiful flowers. So I put the little like heart eyes. I was like, I love when we send each other flowers, but it didn't hit me until right before this that I was like, what kind of flowers are those? And I looked it up and it said anemone. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Because this is the Pythia card that I pulled yesterday that
magic.
like, I have such a hard time with this card. Like if I ever pull a card or do a thing that has kind of like a hard or negative connotation, I like can't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
And then I had a huge revelation later on in the day about it as I was having a conversation. So can I just read this to you?
Please read this to me. Can I also look at the card?
Yeah, I don't have it pulled, but this is the black and white.
Yeah, that's for sure the flower I sent you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So anemone is sacrifice, a dark card, and a potential harbinger. Harbinger.
You did it.
Okay. Of tragedy. Professional failure or personal downfall may be in store, but only following the giving of great altruistic effort. It won't feel this way at first, but it was all worth it. Now that I'm reading that out loud to you and you're cackling, I'm like, oh, holy shit. Wait a second.
Yeah, just me and my tower moment, everything falling down in a rain of fire. Yeah, of course. I was working next to those flowers trying to figure out my life.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so this is bringing a whole new like light and everything to this card as well. But for me, I had like I don't know, I've been going through this like breakdown, I don't fucking know. But a friend gave me a container to be like, if you want to talk this thing out, go for it. I'll just listen. So I sent her this video message and I was like, I don't know. But then I like talked it out and I was like, oh my God, it's so money related. Like I'm feeling shitty about myself because of my financial situation.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it has been like so prolonged and I've never quite been in this situation. I'm having a really hard time with it. And then a little bit later on, I went on a walk and this card just like popped into my head. And I was like thinking that, that like personal downfall, but like it'll all be worth it in the end. And I was like, oh my God, this thing that I'm going through is like nothing else bad is about to happen. I get worried that like, well, something terrible is going to happen. But I was like, no,
you're already in the doom.
I'm already in it.
You've been feeling doomed.
And
it's just telling you what you already know.
Yes, and I think like I was like, "Oh shit, I'm already in it. I'm already feeling
Mm-hmm.
terrible about myself." And I think that like
Mm-hmm.
it all unlocked something and connected those dots. And I felt so much lighter because I was like, even if something bad or hard to deal with or undesirable happened now also, I'm already in it. It's
Yeah.
not gonna like and I know for a fact I can feel it that this what I'm going through, right, is that thing of like
Mm.
it'll all be worth it. Of all of the things that I'm learning right now, everything that I'm integrating right now,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, why? I have to feel these feelings in this way to like, learn the lesson. And so I'm like, duh, it's all going to be worth it, but it
Yeah.
fucking sucks. But
Yeah.
also like I felt so torn up about that card. And then I was like, oh, doesn't it? No, that was it. Like, and then you want to know what I pulled today?
Yes.
This is good for both of us right now. It is henbane, which is errant repose.
Ooh. Okay.
And this one is just, I mean, this is the challenge, right? Is leaning into
Mm-hmm.
to this. Henbane is errant repose, a caution to secure both reverie and rest.
Mm.
We mustn't compel our wandering spirit to toil when, in truth, an unwearied mind rouses the most potent of spells.
Yes, that is exactly the message I've been getting over and over for days on end. After this call, can you send me a picture of this? I think I need to look at it, breathe with it, maybe
Uh-huh.
copy it into my journal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Indeed.
that's Bridget,
Mm.
the circle I've curated is chef's
Ooh.
kiss. Multiple people have reached out to me and they're like, I know that you're going through a hard time right now. However, I think you should rest. I think you should go for a walk in the sun. Give me your address. I want to send you a book I think you're going to enjoy because you're going to have time to read it. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. My whole lesson right now is to learn how to rewire my nervous system to not toil, grind, hustle, be on guard constantly. And it's so funny because this is all stuff I've talked about for so long. I've done so much work on it. And then I did that autumn equinox spell for ease and to clear toxic attachment. And the universe was like, we see you dragging your feet. You don't get any ground to stand on, bitch. And like, oh, right. You don't get healthy in the environment that kept you sick. I've said that many a time to
I've
many
heard
a
you say
folk.
it. Yeah.
And I was trying for years to get healthier in the environment that was keeping me sick. I don't know why everything takes me so long to learn. And again, call back to I have to do everything so intense.
Yeah.
But a card for us, so funny. So I haven't looked at this deck or used it in a long time. Can't tell you why. But today I looked down and I was like, I haven't used that deck in a while. I'm gonna pull something. It's All of You is Magic.
Oh.
I really like the art on it. It's very striking. It has like these really bold colors, these gorgeous like line drawings. And it has like a little saying and then like a little like healing practice on the back of the card. And this one, ha ha ha, for us, attachments to expectations and results keep you stuck in the future. Being present is the moment in the moment is the only thing in your control. It's not like both of us have been working on that forever. Very the powers now. And then I felt a little personally called out because we've also talked about how it's difficult for us both to do inner child or like child visualization work. And this card was just like, too bad. Here's our advice. Visualize a time when you played as a child and were able to not think of the results.
Wow.
These memories are like pebbles on your path. Follow them.
Okay. Okay.
No.
I hear you. I hear you, card. I hear you. But those pebbles to me look as if they are covered in like slimy wet moss, and like if I step on them, I'm not sure I'll stay upright.
This card says that's not the case.
Okay. Okay, I wonder.
Yes.
Perhaps. I almost wanted to be like, I'm raising my hand, please call on me.
I have something very important to say. Give it to me.
Will you say yes, Bridget?
Yes, Bridget?
So I wonder if all of the work that I have done through therapy in particular over these past 4 years, you know, rewiring all of this stuff in here, reprogramming all of the things, lots of you know, childhood stuff and trauma and things that we have worked out. I wonder now if revisiting those, or trying to revisit those, like happier memories, would feel more accessible and feel less like they're too clouded with the rest of the stuff.
I think that's correct, because I had that experience with my EMDR where when I was starting to do when I first started doing EMDR work with my newer therapist, that was my problem, is that we were starting with something easy where we were trying to tap into positive things to keep me resourced. And then what happened is all the stuff that I'm trying not to look at sludged up and was like, no, you don't get to feel good. You have to pay attention to all this. So I had to like be like, oh, I've been stuffing down all the things that feel good because I'm trying to not look at what felt bad.
Ooh. Whoa, I just got full body chills.
It was really powerful when I started trying to access that, because I felt the bad stuff. But all these memories I hadn't thought about in a decade or more kept popping off, like following that one session. And I was like, oh, I forgot I used to play that game, or, oh, I forgot about like that time on the porch, or the way I felt with like a family member that I was safe with. And
I just keep getting waves of chills.
It's brought back waves of memories that like I didn't know I had anymore. And it was so weird because I was like, of course I know this, but I haven't thought about it in forever. And so I wasn't feeling the feeling from those good memories in forever.
You just unlocked something huge.
EMDR is powerful.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That's why I'm just like, I had that experience with one session. So I think you've done so much work at that. I'm curious what would happen if you went to your EMDR therapist asking if you could like see if you could do some tapping visualization stuff about like a time when you felt something positive, whatever that is, playful or safe, and see what pops up. Because I was shocked at what popped up for me. Because as an adult, I wouldn't have thought of that family member. But when I was a kid, I didn't have all of the baggage that built up in the later years. When I was a kid, that was my human. And I was surprised that I kind of forgot how loved I was and how safe I felt with that person when I was a kid. And just because things shifted and changed and maybe soured a bit when I was older, didn't take away how I felt then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Today is the beginning of October, and at the end of October, my therapist is back
Oh, that's
from
right.
maternity leave. So I'm so excited to see her. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I love that for you.
I mean, like, my stand-in therapist in the interim has been she's been fine. She's been great. She's, but she's
Yeah,
not.
but like she's not
Yeah.
the person you've been working with and have that
Yeah.
rapport with.
Yeah.
May I share another card with you?
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about this, that you're like, hey, I wonder if how do we do this whole getting back to our childhood thing? I just, without looking, pulled a card.
Hmm.
It's this one, which I think is funny because it's very much mirroring
Uh-huh.
this other art. It says, step out of the waiting, be here, and the light of the present moment will find you. The answers will be revealed in due time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that my therapist always tells me, like, that you know what you need to know right
Yep.
now, right here in this moment. And when you need to know something else, it'll come. You'll learn it.
Yeah. And the ritual for this one is just a question saying, like, what has been keeping you waiting? Write it down as you visualize it flow out of your fingers and onto the paper. And one of my journal practices, and I can't remember where I got it, it was from somewhere, where the phrase that I typically use for that is, what am I pretending not to know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because there is a choice in that, I'm finding out. It didn't feel like it at first, but the more I journal on that prompt, the more I'm like, oh, there's
Hmm.
lots of parts of me that are trying to pretend like we don't know stuff.
Hmm.
Good and bad, which is a bummer. But I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sit with that for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's
Um,
like a lot of fighting that happens when I journal with that prompt. Because like it feels, there's like a friction. Because like the reason I'm pretending not to know is because part of me thinks that I'm protecting something, but I love knowing stuff. And I know that pretending like things aren't known to me or doubting myself is not helpful. But man, does it feel like the right thing?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes me think of the thing that I discovered yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, w- I think like what I felt like I didn't know, ugh, I just lost that. But it's the like I've been so focused on what I thought the problem was, which was like my financial situation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the problem. And I'm so consumed and fixated on it. And it's disrupting every part of my life because I can't like just fucking be here because I'm so fixated and worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, oh, that is just an excuse. That's just the thing I'm putting like the blame on. But it's really, all of these ways that I'm feeling about myself, all of the judgments that I'm putting upon myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the not being here in the present. It's the not trusting. This is my fucking
Yeah.
um affirmation for this week. I was trying to figure out how to put this all into one sentence, but I've
Mm.
been working on like trusting the process. I trust the process of life.
Yeah.
But this weekend I realized that that is what surrender is.
I've been
And
doing a lot of surrender meditations and it's really,
and I was like,
it's
"Oh
really hard.
fuck." I was like, "That's it. I haven't been allowing myself to surrender because I don't trust." And so I was like, I surrender to trusting the process of life. And I'm like, I don't know that I love the wording of it, but
Yeah. You're getting closer to
it's in there.
something.
It's
Yeah.
in any event, it's reminding me of surrender and trust the process. And like something about me is holding on so tightly to like, I can't trust the process. I can't surrender. And here
Mm-hmm.
are all of my like reasons and excuses why. And I just keep like clinging to them. Like the
Yep.
tension in my body has been fucking insane lately.
Same.
And
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
just
all
like,
right there with you.
what the fuck, man? I just let me be here.
Yes.
But also, every time I notice myself saying, let me be here, let me do this, I'm writing it all down, right? And then I switch to, no, I get to choose.
Yep. Because it does feel powerless.
I get to be here.
Yeah.
So at least I'm noticing that.
Yeah. I think we're dissolving some of the rough edges of the thing. When I think of surrender, I often come back to this visualization and like sensory thing of sand. So like if sand is the thing that you like want more of and you're trying to like hold as much sand as you can, when you have like an open gentle palm bowl full, you could get a lot of sand piled up in there. And then as soon as you start squeezing, it just like is shooting, pouring out, and you left with this tiny little bit in the palm, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I think about that a lot when I'm thinking about surrender, because I hate that word because it makes me feel it feels anti what I want to do, which is hold and grasp and pull and like the tension. The tension thinks it's helping. So the sand idea helps a lot. Oh, and there was something else in there too. What was it? Surrender, sand. What else did you say?
Trust the process.
Trusting the process. Yeah, because I think for me, trusting the process just means trusting myself that I can adapt, adjust, handle things. It's that capable
Yeah.
fear. I actually got a really lovely pep talk where someone pointed out all the way. So the word pivot was my word for it, where it's just like, I feel like I'm so exhausted and I feel so clumsy right now that it's just like, I don't know how to pivot into this new reality, even though it's what I wanted and wished for and did a spell about. And then they started pointing out all of these instances where they're like, you pivot all the time. Here, look. And I was like, oh, right. I'm not powerless. I can, in fact, move and shift and like not react, but respond. And I always forget that because it doesn't feel true all the time. Yes, Bridget?
Also, I would like to add that.
So cute.
And that just brought me so much joy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That I think that it is this maybe perspective shift of this thing that we've been talking about, but that you're already pivoting, but it doesn't look maybe the way you expect or the way you think it should, or you feel so like off your rocker that you're like, none of this is okay, but like you're already pivoting, you're already doing the things, you're already like,
oh, sure. Okay, no, you're right, because I talked to you the same day the same day that my life tower moment started to the wobble fall. I think past versions of me wouldn't have been able to get to well, you did ask for this though. You asked for a monumental shift. You were thinking about it in one particular way. You didn't realize how it can manifest, but I did ask for this. I have been wanting this. I thought it was going to be more on my own terms, but I think I'm still learning that I get to choose and move. So I needed time and space to regulate my nervous system so that I could choose, because I was too overloaded. And that's been a big wake up call, literally a wake up call, because every morning I wake up, the past, few handful of days, and my body's already revving. Like, I open my eyes and my mind is spinning, my body's popping off. I'm like going through this like whole list of stuff, and all of it's criticism and judgment, and like, you got to do this and you should have done that, and you don't have the energy or the time. As soon as my little awareness starts, sometimes I don't even have to open my eyes. Sometimes I'm just awake and my eyes aren't even open yet, and I'm already in this maelstrom of just negativity and just being like, you got to be somewhere, you got to be doing something, get out of bed, you don't get to lay here. Like, it's just constant. And I was just like, oh, no wonder I had no energy to get out of this. Like, I've been talking about wanting to pivot and shift, and I just didn't have it in me. And no wonder. I've just been burning through things as soon as my awareness shifts. And sometimes even in my dreams, because I've been having anxiety nightmares. Late for stuff. I've been having yelling matches with people in my dreams. It's a lot. Yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah. I had something a little bit ago that it felt like it fit, and now I'm like, where does it fit? So maybe I'll just say it.
Yeah, just say it. We'll figure it out later.
And
That's for post.
it was that another thing that I realized, maybe it was later yesterday after all of these things, but I realized that maybe this is something to do with feeling so out of sorts, so overtaken, so consumed by this stuff, and being like, well, I know these beliefs that I have worked on, like through therapy. I've developed all of these positive beliefs, these things that I have been working on. Like, I trust the process. I am capable. Oh, I think it popped into my head when you said my I am capable. Right? Like, I'm successful. Like, all of these things that I have defined and realized and reprogrammed and things for me to believe. But then all of these things in the real world come up and tell me, like, these negative judgments about myself, like, nah, that ain't true. You're a piece of shit. And it's like, so now the practice of living is just being reminded of those things, which I know, like, we talk about the spiral staircase of learning of life, but it's like, all I have to do is, when I start feeling down and start feeling this thing or whatever it is, I just know that I need to reach into my bag of tricks, like into these beliefs that I've already instilled, into these resources that I have, like conversations with you. And I'm like, this is what's going on. And then you're able to mirror that back to me and give me that reminder of like, oh, I just need to, it's almost like I'm like a witch and I've got a little bag of magical spells and I just need to like go in there and call it out, whatever it is for this situation, and remind myself, oh, no, remember, you are successful. You do believe that you're successful. And this is just coming up and trying to challenge that. And like, that's just what life is. Oh, I think it also came into my head in this way because oh!
What? Right out of your forehead, from your third eye.
I was just about to tell you that okay, so Luke is playing the new Zelda game.
Okay.
And in this game, he's always got headphones on. I've never heard it, but sometimes I sit down and like watch what's on the screen. And so from my perception of what this game is that you've got your little character and she's going around in this world doing these things. And once she beats an enemy, she gets to keep them in her little like inventory and call upon them, like to take them out to use them in different situations. They each do something different. So I'm watching him like go throughout this world and like come up upon an obstacle, and he's like, how can I solve this problem? And he goes into his little inventory and pulls out one of those like characters or one of those objects. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. That's what I need to do, right? I get into this situation where it's a problem. I feel like it's too big for me to handle. But all I need to do is open my little bag of tricks, see what I've got in there, and use some of them to help me get through the thing and to remember that I'm okay no matter what is happening around me.
Oh my goodness, Bridget. Yeah. And also community.
Yeah.
We get to look into our bag of tricks, and we also get to look at our network and be like,
because you're
hey,
in my bag of tricks.
Yeah.
Like talking to you is in my bag of tricks.
Okay. All right. You know what? I've been getting praised recently for reaching out more. And I'm starting to see why I'm getting that feedback now. This is doing okay. Doing all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like yeah, and it was wild to me, like all of these connections that just like lined up yesterday. And it all was like from this friend just being like, hey, I heard you say this thing last week and I don't want to like brush over it. I know it's a thing you've talked about in the past. I've gone through it too. If you want, I'm here. And I thought through that all day, and I was like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I was like, I
Yeah, 'cause it
don't know
feels
what to talk
bad.
about. Like, I was like, and I think in my head, I was like, I've thought about it, but like, I don't know the solution. I don't know what I'm going to say to this person. And I found myself, I went and I sat in the park after my allergy shots again in my car. And I'm just like, I've got my seat reclined, I'm listening to some music. And I just kept like, it just kept popping up in my head. And I was thinking about it. And I was like, quit thinking about it and just open up the message and start talking.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all because of that. Then I talked all of that out. I still didn't feel like I had the answer. But then later on, I went walking and some other shit started connecting.
Yeah.
And then
It's
here
like
now,
opening.
and some other shit just starts connecting.
Yeah. You're like letting the breeze in. And it's starting to like filter out all of the like stuffy, stale stagnancy, allowing some space.
This morning, I had another person who doesn't know me super, super well, but we've like started getting to know each other like for a little bit. And she was like, you're a psychic witch.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, my friend Tiffany tells me that all the time.
Yeah.
But I was like, ugh. And then she started talking about how like it's my Aries sun, and that's like and she was talking about how like the other like psychic witches that she knows in her life are Aries suns, and she was kind of like describing this. And then she said something, and I was like, yeah, it's that it's that trust, it's that self-trust. Like, I don't trust it, I don't believe it, like I don't, that's why I think that it's like.
Did you hear that?
I heard something.
Someone was just whooping as they're riding their bike down the
road. That makes me think of my thing says delight department.
Yeah.
Just go around whooping. But then she was like, oh, do you have Virgo placements? And I was like, yeah, Virgo moon. And she was like, oh my God, that makes total sense. Those are totally like you know, at odds. So you've got your one thing pushing you to be like, hey, I know this thing. And then your other thing being like, wait a second, we got to get all the facts and make sure we know all the stuff. And
Our
we got to
Virgo moon
really
is
think
so
about that.
critical.
We got to like really think about that first. And it's just like, quit fucking thinking about it. So
much. That's like your mantra. Stop thinking about it.
But then she was like, you know, like it's the balance between the two.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, of course it is.
Yeah, because you and I love to overthink a thing. We're really good at it. It's a great skill when channeled appropriately.
I guess it's something. I guess like if we can channel that focus of like, sure, let me overthink about how successful I am, how capable I am, let me overthink some fucking fantastical daydream in my head. Let me get lost in that. Like, let's go there. That's where we're going. Let's go there.
Yeah, that is such a hard practice because I was telling you about how one of my friends' practices is I'm just going to believe the most absurd, delightful thing. And she's been finding that that's making it easier for her when her anxiety brain pops up where she's like, oh, I get to choose not to believe that. So it's like happening in that direction. And then this week I had a conversation with a friend who started laying out all of these options I had. Like with now that I have like this space and I'm trying to pivot, she like laid out like all of these different pathways that I could take. And some of the stuff she said never occurred to me. And I was like, oh, isn't that fascinating? That I got this opportunity to be like, well, I got a shift. So think of all the ways in which that could go. And there were a couple of things that she said where I was like, my brain literally didn't allow me the awareness to even consider that. Could be a thing. Yes, Bridget?
Later, can you tell me what those things are? Because I'm really interested.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has a lot to do with just blocking beliefs where there's just this idea that I don't get to, what is that? Some of it's financial for sure. Yeah, I think some of it's like, well, you don't have access, you don't have resources, so you don't get to A, B, or C. And the
so
idea,
you just shut down thinking about it altogether.
Don't even allow myself to fantasize, let alone start thinking about it as a reality. And I was like, oh, that's wild. And then that really highlighted for me the idea of how much I do shut down in myself and I didn't realize, which is like so funny because I think of myself as like a daydreamy, whimsical person. And I am in some respects. But then I also have that oppositional force of being like, no, we got to squash that. And I'm like, I think this is the sickness of living in this society.
This is the sickness. No, that's exactly that. I have been well aware of that in myself for a bit now. And
I'm doing another layer of excavation about that.
Yeah. And that is interesting to hear you say that like you are a daydreamy person in some aspects, and like thinking of myself when I used to get lost in daydreams all the time when I was younger. And I shut that down. And
me too.
So like, yeah. And I think we've talked about like when I figured, or when I worked on like getting it back in some capacities, like being able to visualize again for the first time. But yeah, so now I'm like, okay, that's perhaps, I wonder about revisiting that part of childhood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
As like part of that exercise, like tapping into that. And I'm curious as to how that will go, because I know that I used it as a like survival coping mechanism to like remove myself from what I was in. in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm interested. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's interesting the idea that you found that coping skill out of a need and now you get to revisit it as a want. Like you get to choose to do it instead of feeling like, oh, this is what I need to keep going. It's like, no, I'm going just fine, but I get to revisit this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Hey, this is gonna be a good month for us. Okay.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I felt something very bright and like open in my chest when I repeated it in my head. Like, yeah, this is going to be really, I love October.
Yeah.
I love October.
If I remember correctly, you had a pretty shitty October last year, so this one
I
can make up for
really
it.
did. Yeah, I got kicked around a lot last October. I had to lay down most of the month. Like, yeah, I was very
you're
ill.
up right now.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I was very stressed, very depressed, and very ill. But I worked at a witch cafe the other day. I walked by the river. I saw some very inappropriate graffiti and also very uplifting graffiti, all written in the same paint. That was fun.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You sent me some psychic flowers.
I sent you some psychic flowers. Oh, I love this magic feedback loop we have. What a beautiful time. I'm so glad you asked. You have good questions. You're a very powerful witch.
Thank you.
I really needed to hear that card.
Wow.
I love you so much. I'm so lucky to have you. Keep you.
Okay.